It's the Money Man and SA Rugby Mag preview to the July series. There's a plethora of test matches to open the series. We've got Ireland in South Africa for 2 tests. One plays 2. Young France team has travelled all the way to Argentina to take on the Pumas. We've got 2 teams on a reboot there with Wales and Australia facing off in Australia. And then obviously England are taking on the All Blacks in New Zealand. I'm with Welsh and Lions legend Scott Gibbs. Scotty, I don't know, you probably want to start off with the Welsh touring Australia. Just your thoughts. Both of those teams recovering from some poor results. The Welsh winless in the Six Nations, and Australia recovering from a disappointed World Cup. They haven't played since.
No, that's right. I think if you look at the last good performance by Wales was that drubbing in the Rugby World Cup against Australia. So, you know, I think we have to go back to 1969 since Wales won a test series or a test match in Australia. I think the last closest one was 1917 to Australia in 1978. In 1991, I was on that tour, and we got it handed to us, 63-3, chasing shadows for what seemed like 6 weeks. So there's been some competitiveness, you know, between both Wales and Australia. Yeah. You know, what is the feeling from the Welsh camp, from everyone in Wales? You know, the message coming out of the camp is that they're stripping their game back. They're going back to a more of a simplified understanding. I think that understanding has to be amplified so they know exactly what is the message, what are the key messages, but certainly encourage that we got more frontline experience coming back into the fold, the likes of David Jenkins, Chris Sinzer, Tommy Reffelu's been amazing with Leicester Tigers this year. So, you know, threats on the ball, over the ball, it's about a coherent game plan. Game management has always has been a difficult element that we've seen since Gatland has come back. That said, though, I'm encouraged because from a Welsh perspective, there's nothing to lose. I think Australia are in a very similar position. Yeah, very much so. You know, nothing really jumps off the page when you look at their squad. So I think it'll be a competitive test series. And I think if I switch to Australia, Joe Smith coming in, you know, expectation from his perspective. I think if there's one coach out there that I would have loved to play for, would be Joe Smith, because I just think that he has, you know, really a beautiful way of dealing with the players. A lot of empathy, a lot of understanding, a lot of chatter. So I think they'll be on message. But the fact is that, you know, pieces and weapons are a key component in that. So it'll be interesting to see his influence. Do we see that influence immediately, or is this a work in progress? So I think that is a very equally kind of test match this Saturday. Performance over results. We've constantly heard that out of the Welsh camp. I think this weekend is all about results. And we are in a results-based industry. Sure. You know, they matter. And certainly Gatland wouldn't want to go down another game, 8 in a trot. So I'm encouraged that the hard work that they've done since arriving on the Australian shores, you know, they need a big test match on Saturday just to buoy the nation and to buoy everybody involved.
There's something about that rivalry, though, between Wales and Australia. I mean, they are the bogey team for Australia at World Cups historically, even though they have this terrible one-win record in Australia. What is it about their ability to pick themselves up at big tournaments that they aren't able to do?
I think it's belief, Zelly. I think it's belief for a long time. I think Wales have won 4 of the last 5 encounters against Australia. You know, we see Australia regularly come into the autumn series and Wales kind of undoing them and picking them. So I think both sides are in a huge rebuild. We just have to see how that unfolds. I mean, I don't think there's much complexity to the game at all. I think it's you expect that a very talented group of Australian players now are going to go out and probably play to their strengths with a little bit of guidance and micromanagement from their coach. I think with Gatland, conversely, it's about simplification, the path of least resistance, let's run hard, let's tackle hard, let's play the right territories, and obviously let's convert pressure into points.
Yeah. Anytime there's a rebuild, you're looking at youth, right? I mean, generally you're going to rebuild with some of the youngsters. You were at the stadium to watch the Wales under-20s take on the Baby Blacks, the New Zealand's under-20s, and what a match.
Well, again, encouraging signs for the future. I was out at Athlone on Saturday evening. It was a perfect night for rugby. You could see the All Blacks turn out, and they were physically the bigger side in stature. Yes. Did they use that to their advantage? Did they dominate? In parts, they did. But my takeaways from both sides were amazing. I mean, 11 tries scored, all deserved, because there were some errors on both sides of the field. But it was ferocious in the contact area, really was. New Zealand, nice shapes behind the scrum. They got on outside shoulders. They supported well, but incredible scramble defence by the Welsh under-20s. So it just shows you there's confidence, there's resilience in this side.
And I mean, they ate 2 cheese crackers, 2 yellow cards, and they came within 7 points.
Yeah, and you know what? Again, another magnificent performance, I think, by Morgan Morse, the number 8, who's been overlooked by Gatland repeatedly. You could see that this guy's obviously one hell of a rugby player. Has had a lot of time in that position with the Ospreys over the last couple of years, is a perennial performer, underlooked and underappreciated. His time will come. I got no doubt that his time has come, because he is just speaking volumes in his leadership and his performance. The yellow card, Jesus, what a hit that was. I mean, when you looked at the slow-mo in Athlone, that could have easily escalated into a red, but, he got back on the field. One surprise for me, I think the Lucid, the Scarlett Lucid, young, diminutive prop, runs some great lines, support lines, carried the ball well. Josh Morse, his name. I'm not sure if they're a relation, but clearly the Morse name in South Wales is I tell you what, yeah.
But there's nothing wrong then with the junior structures in Wales, surely. If the gap is so close there, the problem is happening after that.
Yeah, well, it has done for a long time, and that's, there's this conversion in that people get lost through the net once they develop through the under-19s and the under-20 system, and it shouldn't be that, because I think one thing that's happened over the last several months is that Rob Howley's inclusion back into the senior team has come with a kind of another job responsibility at how we harness the youthful talent and keeping a good eye on and communicating with the coaches, the relevant people, and encouraging the highlighted talent for future progress. Yeah. There was another notable performance in the midfield, Louis Hennessy, in the Bath Rugby Academy. Johan van Grant will be thrilled to see his ascension, because he scored a brace of tries. One of them was a spectacular, came off the line, hit this beautiful line with pace and power, uses his advantage, came off a beautiful right step, and then just went on this arcing run, scored. So there was some tries of note. There was creativity. There was athleticism. I mean, what cost Wales in the end was the 2 red cards of discipline, and late in the game, territorially, they had 2 lineouts in the 25 that they were carbon copies of each other. Yeah. And it was probably a mistimed thing, but it was just a lifting thing, maybe a little bit of late game fatigue. Yeah.
But I saw your man Morse from the last kickoff receive the ball, bang it out into touch. Yeah, All Blacks line up with no timeout.
Well, these things happen, don't they? I mean, whether you were fixated with the scoreboard or not. Yeah. But I mean, they were that far away from drawing that game. Ultimately, I think maybe they knew that they had the 2 bonus points to take them through the next step. But what a great game! Surprise that World Rugby is not marketing the under-20s championship more, because there was a small little crowd. But nevertheless, what a thrilling encounter it really was against, against the All Blacks, who were probably kind of stuck in fourth gear, because you could see there was another dimension to them. Again, notable performances across the park, but very encouraging about the ability and the resilience and the doggedness of the Welsh team, and the way that they applied themselves was good. So, whether any of these guys get a call up now to be in Australia next week, who knows, subject to injury or so on. But it was very mightily encouraging to see a handful of those guys really put their hand up.
Yeah. Youth and inexperience is a feature of the France tour to Argentina. Galtiers has taken, I think, 22 uncapped players, only 4 holdovers from the World Cup. Just your thoughts around that tour, Wes?
Well, it's interesting because everything seems to be happening geopolitically, rugby, right. Paris Olympics, it's all surrounding. I mean, France is the epicenter of major decisions at the moment. Yeah. So the fact is, you look at that, what is essentially an under-23 team going to South Africa, to Argentina. Yeah. All the big oaks flew over in business class, all the backs in economy. That's a good kind of team building exercise there. So I don't know what to expect of that. I think contemporaneously you look at, how do I prepare for the rugby championship when I don't know who I'm up against? Yeah. So again, we work both ways. But clearly, again, there's obviously another vision in this cycle about France in 4 years' time. So I think a masterstroke for Galtiers to see exactly the level of depth that is in French rugby at the moment.
Yeah, do you think it's quite indicative of his comfort in his position? Because there is a little bit of sort of rumblings around Galtiers and his future. And it's quite a brave call to potentially risk a series in Argentina building for the future.
Sure is, Ellie. Yeah? Sure is, yeah. Who knows what's going on? A year in rugby is a long time. So who knows? Who knows? I think Galtiers has proven in the build-up to the last World Cup, despite the disappointments, that he has brought back that originality of what makes French international rugby good, with the depth and the squareness and the flair and the inimitable talent, and how you harness that. So there's plenty of pieces and weapons, and we constantly talk about getting the right pieces and the right balance. So this is about an eye on the future, and the good thing about these experiments is that it's a win-win. You just see exactly what. Who wants it most? Can we get this team to galvanize with this useful experience? And what comes with that? You're not jaundiced by a system. You're not jaundiced by the coaches. You go out there and it's, you have a chance to put your own little stamp on it, create another level of flair and excitement about French rugby. And surely that's good to underpin Galtiers' ideology about where the team needs to be going for the next World Cup.
So the future for England without Owen Farrell begins this week. They're in Dunedin, sailed all the way there with Captain Jamie George and some youthful fly halves. What are your thoughts around the status of England after a relatively underwhelming Six Nations tournament?
Well, I think all this starts with Farrell, really, isn't it? And his decision, for whatever reason, and whether that's just a new opportunity, a new challenge, or just time out of the spotlight, I agree. Because I think in the end, for me, Farrell was probably hurting this team. When you have the likes of Finn Smith and Marcus Smith, knocking on the door, with their ability to create a different shift, and I think for a long time England rugby needed that. So I just like there seems to be a settledness with selection, a consistency now. There's not much noise from a press perspective, and Borthwick's been good at kind of keeping that, suppressed. So it'll be all about the talking, and talking and walking the big walk on Saturday. And I'm encouraged, because if you look at the tight five, it's solid. It's exactly what you want from an England tight five. The back row now is starting to look very, very balanced. Cunningham South comes in, and young 21-year-old back rower that has all of the elements and minerals to compete and thrive at this level.
Totally.
Grew up in New Zealand, you know, Hamilton Boys School, alumni, Westlake College. So he kind of knows, he knows the DNA of AB rugby.
Yeah. And you've got Underhill and Earl, two guys who are great, great to the ball.
Of course they are. Yeah. But all three are great over the ball. All three are great carriers. And I think say 3 out of 3 of them, they know how to hurt. They know how to hit. They're very robust, huge engines. You know, and athletic, powerful. So you just name it. So I just see that there's, in every facet, tight five, great balance in the back row, half-back consistency. I think the midfield is starting to tick as well with Ollie Lawrence. And then, you know, I think they're probably where there's less question marks is like the fluidity of the back three.
I was going to say.
You know, is like, who is... You know, who dominates that backfield? Who is the best 15 for our game plan?
Yes.
Who's the best on the left and on the right? How can they integrate? Great to see that Slightdown gets his spot on the bench, top try scorer, every inch in international pace to burn. So, you know, I like the way that Borthwick is going. I think it's starting to feel settled. It's starting to feel exciting. And no better place to go and test your mettle right now than Eden.
If anything, that England bench is a bit underwhelming, though, right? There's a few guys there who maybe don't live up to the same levels as the guys that are starting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the second half of that Dunedin test, I think.
Well, and that's right now, because when you talk about Test match rugby, you know, you can dominate for the first hour,
right?
But that's not what you got to be. You got to be dominant. The final whistle, the scoreboard. You know, you have to have separation in the scoreboard.
Yeah.
There are so many elements now that go into it. So you exhaust the bench. Everybody knows you exhaust the bench.
Yeah.
So
you've seen the clip about Richie McCaw, how he wasn't an explosive athlete in terms of his testing, but his key unique sort of selling point was that he could chug at that speed for the full 80 minutes. And so by the end of the match, in the final quarter, he was amongst the fastest players on the field.
Yeah, there we go.
Because he could just go for it.
Yeah, but Richie grew up playing, then he knew he would play 80 minutes. He would never be. I mean,
correct.
You know,
different game.
Not because he was Richie McCaw. It was a different game.
Yeah.
You know, you had to be in those days either injured or, you know, taken off with a head knock because that was the way it was.
Yeah.
So. You know, it does cause a little bit of kind of ambiguity as to, you know, why are these benches so strong? You know, and of course, of late now, since the 6-2 split or the 7-1 split, talk about an 8-0. You know, I just don't know where that's going. I mean, because I think with natural science, you know, you expect to see fatigue late on in the game. You expect to see mistakes late on the game. And therein lies the opportunity, isn't it?
Spot on. Would you, in an ideal world, would you cut the bench? Would you reduce the number of replacements? Or what's your view?
Well, I think we've gone too far now just because of the physicality and the level of pain that the players and athletes have to go through is that it's pretty impossible now to retreat that point of view, isn't it? So
okay, interesting. All Blacks, Razor, first test in charge. All of these European teams have had an entire Six Nations to forget the World Cup. The All Blacks, this will be their first one since the final under a new coach. What is your take on them?
Well, you know, I mean, this has been an appointment 7 years in the making, isn't it? You know?
That's spot on.
It has been. So, you know, so there's been anticipation building and boiling over for years. About Scott Robertson. There's
Is it too late? Is it the right appointment?
No, he's still a young buck, isn't he? I mean,
but in terms of like his Crusaders team that he would have brought through, if it
there was talk this week about conscious bias. You know, his conscious bias about, you know, you don't know what you don't know, so you stick to what you know by kind of picking the players that you are familiar with.
Yes.
And I mean, that'll all unravel itself because ultimately in international rugby, the cream usually comes to the top and you know where your deficiencies sometimes lie, whether that's in the tight five, on the back row balance, and being a back rower himself. You know, he's really going to take ownership on the how to steer the ship. And, you know, behind the scrum, again, there's a plethora of talent. It's just how it's kind of engineered. How do you get these pieces into the right places? And this is, because historically, the All Blacks have been standard bearers for what's good about the spirit of rugby.
Yes.
Great counter-attack, individual talent that is just quicker, faster, more powerful than anywhere. But putting it all together into a coherent message is going to be his challenge.
Yeah.
And I mean, and at home, I see that this will be a slow burn, kind of a little small continued work in progress for him, because it literally is about, what do I think is the best balance at halfback, midfield, and the midfield balance really affects how we attacked on the 15 and the 5 meter channel. What are we going to do from a counter-attacking perspective? Are we going to revert to what All Black coaches have done before and play, territory and possession, dominate the clock, dominate the ball? So it's going to be an interesting blend, because I think that the mindset from England will be safe and secure. But with Marcus Smith, if they get quick go forward ball, that guy's instinct will see it. He'll see it.
Yeah.
And that's I think going to ignite the appetite for any spilt ball, any turnover ball that we're going to see, two quick passes, and let's get into the wide channels, because they have, they got speed across the park.
Yeah, they do. You and I'll have the privilege of sitting with Keo later in the week and chatting about Ireland, South Africa.
Oh, we'll have a massive deep dive into that, because I think, that is 1 and 2. I mean, it's probably, this weekend, it will dominate the headlines for the obvious reasons, because we have two consistently great performing rugby teams. There's a lot of unknowns in the other test matches.
Yeah.
It's up in the air with new coaches, young players, etc. But there's a consistent theme this weekend in Pretoria, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have two big heavyweights going at it, and there's a little bit of bite off the field, which is great. We'll get into that Thursday.
Yeah. Let's call your shots on the other 3 matches, Scotty. Just your thoughts around Wales and how they kick off the tour in Australia. Do you see?
Well, the thing is, I think if Wales were going into the game with a higher spirit and a higher position of confidence, having a mediocre kind of season, I'd be a little bit more encouraged to say, they could sneak the win. But I just think that they have to go back. You have to go back, retreat, go back, to go forward. Yeah. I think because of that kind of simplicity and the onus on getting the game management right, I think they might just come up short. That said, would I be highly surprised if Argentina if Australia come out of the boots this weekend and just put on something like, where the hell did that come from?
Yeah.
In the same time frame that Schmidt has had with his players and Gatlin has players.
Yes.
So that's my call, because I think the future is bright for Wales, just not bright enough right now.
Yeah.
Go into Dunedin. Yeah. Listen, there's something about this side that tells me that there's enough mongrel in that England side to really make it uncomfortable for New Zealand. And of course, if New Zealand haven't been clearly communicated in the minutiae of the game, which is Razor's kind of métier.
Yes, it is.
And if they can create some type of looseness to it, then there's no doubt that England can trip up the mighty All Blacks this weekend. But I think on home turf, going to be mightily tough.
Agreed. And then France in Argentina.
Contemporaneous takes over the reins.
Yes.
He's probably thinking, what have you done? What have you done to me? I want to prepare, and we're starting to prepare for the rugby championship.
You sent your kids over.
And you said, and that's nothing. He said, well, I got nothing to go on.
Right.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because I think, Contemporaneous, very cerebral guy. It'll be like, it's about what we do well. And whatever the opposition is the opposition. So, I can see Argentina taking that series quite convincingly.
Yeah, I'm not going to bet against history. I'm going to go with the 3 local home teams, Southern Hemisphere teams, to win those ones. But as we said, we'll unpack Ireland, South Africa on Thursday. Scott, myself, and Keo. It'll be a great deep dive into that match, and we look forward to seeing you there.